The day the bulldozers arrived, everyone in Willow Creek thought Mason Hart's life was over. For nearly 15 years, his small garage had stood beside the old highway, surrounded by dusty fields and weathered trees. It wasn't much to look at. The faded blue paint peeled from the walls, the roof leaked during heavy rain, and the wooden sign hanging above the entrance had become so worn that only a few letters remained visible. But to Mason, that garage was everything. It was where he worked, where he raised his daughter, and where he kept alive the promise he had made to his late wife. Then one summer morning, dozens of construction trucks rolled into town. Within weeks, rumors spread everywhere. A billionaire CEO named Callan Voss had purchased hundreds of acres of land beside the highway. His company planned to build a luxury resort worth $99 million. The project would include private villas, fine dining restaurants, a golf course, spas, and breathtaking lake views designed to attract wealthy visitors from around the world. Everyone celebrated. Everyone except Mason. Because the resort would be built directly beside his tiny garage. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still matters, if you believe good people deserve second chances, please like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, leave a comment below, and subscribe to Heartline Stories for more emotional journeys that touch the heart. As construction began, Mason watched enormous cranes rise above the trees. Every day, more workers arrived. Massive walls appeared. Beautiful stone pathways took shape. The resort seemed to grow overnight. Meanwhile, his garage looked smaller and older with each passing day. Customers stopped coming. Many assumed the garage would soon be demolished. Others thought Mason would sell and leave town. But he couldn't. 6 years earlier, his wife, Tessa, had lost her battle with a sudden illness. Their daughter, Aria, had been only 8 years old at the time. The garage was the only thing Tessa and Mason had built together from nothing. They had painted the walls with their own hands. They had repaired every broken beam themselves. Selling it felt like erasing her memory. So Mason stayed. He worked long hours repairing engines, changing tires, and fixing old trucks. Some days only one customer appeared. Other days none came at all. Money grew tighter every month. Aria noticed everything. Now 14 years old, she rarely complained. She helped clean the office after school. She organized receipts. She even learned basic repair work from her father. Yet Mason could see the worry in her eyes. The resort's grand opening was scheduled for the following spring. As the date approached, the contrast between the two properties became impossible to ignore. The resort sparkled with elegance. The garage looked forgotten. Visitors driving toward the luxury entrance barely glanced at Mason's building. Town residents whispered that he would eventually close. Even Mason began to wonder if they were right. One evening, after paying bills, he sat alone in the garage office and stared at the numbers. The account balance had dropped lower than ever before. For the first time in years, fear overwhelmed him. He imagined losing everything. He imagined disappointing Aria. He imagined locking the garage forever. Outside, construction lights illuminated the sky. The resort glowed like a palace. The garage sat in darkness. Yet the next morning, Mason opened the shop again. Because giving up was never an option. Months later, the grand opening finally arrived. Luxury cars filled the roads. Celebrities, business executives, and wealthy tourists poured into Willow Creek. News helicopters circled overhead. The entire town buzzed with excitement. The resort quickly became one of the region's most talked about destinations. At first, Mason barely noticed. He focused on surviving one day at a time. Then something unexpected happened. A young couple staying at the resort experienced a flat tire on a nearby road. Their GPS directed them to Mason's garage. He repaired the tire quickly and refused to overcharge them despite their expensive vehicle. The couple left grateful. The next day, they returned with coffee and pastries. A week later, they posted an online review praising not only Mason's skill but also his honesty and kindness. The review spread surprisingly fast. Soon another guest visited. Then another. Then another. Many had luxury cars requiring specialized attention. Some simply stopped after hearing about the kind mechanic beside the resort. Every visitor seemed to leave with the same impression. Mason treated everyone with respect. He never rushed people. He never inflated prices. He genuinely cared. In a world filled with automated services and corporate experiences, his garage felt human. Word traveled rapidly. Within months, resort guests began making a habit of stopping by. Some came for repairs. Others came simply to meet the mechanic everyone was talking about. What started as curiosity became something much bigger. One afternoon, a travel blogger staying at the resort filmed a short video about hidden local gems. The camera captured Mason helping an elderly traveler whose vehicle had broken down. The video showed grease on Mason's hands and exhaustion on his face, yet he smiled warmly while working. Millions watched. The internet fell in love. Comments flooded in from around the world. People admired his humility. They admired his dedication to raising his daughter alone. They admired the way he continued working despite enormous challenges. Suddenly, visitors arrived specifically to see the garage. Many bought small souvenirs Arya had started making in her spare time. Others left generous tips. Some simply wanted to shake Mason's hand. Business improved dramatically. But success brought new problems. The garage became overwhelmed. Cars lined up outside every morning. Customers sometimes waited hours. Mason worked before sunrise and long after sunset. Exhaustion returned. Yet he remained grateful. One busy afternoon, a black luxury SUV pulled into the parking lot. The driver stepped out. The entire garage fell silent. It was Callan Voss. The billionaire CEO himself. Mason recognized him immediately from newspaper articles and television interviews. Callan looked around quietly. He studied the aging building. He noticed the cracked pavement. The worn tools. The faded photographs hanging on the office wall. Then he noticed Arya helping a customer. For several moments, he simply watched. Mason expected complaints. He expected pressure to sell. Instead, Callan asked for a tour. As they walked through the garage, Mason explained its history. He talked about Tessa. He talked about the struggles of raising Arya alone. He talked about the years spent building the business one customer at a time. Callan listened carefully. When the tour ended, he thanked Mason and left. Nothing more happened. Or so Mason thought. A few weeks later, resort guests began receiving welcome brochures. Inside was a surprising recommendation. Alongside famous restaurants and attractions appeared a small section called Local Legends. At the top sat Mason's garage. Guests were encouraged to visit and experience one of Willow Creek's most beloved businesses. The impact was immediate. Visitor numbers doubled. Then tripled. Soon Mason realized something extraordinary. Many resort guests seemed more excited about visiting the garage than some of the resort attractions. They loved hearing his story. They loved meeting Arya. They loved supporting someone who had overcome hardship. The garage became a symbol of authenticity. While the resort offered luxury, Mason offered something money couldn't buy. Connection. One autumn afternoon, a severe storm struck Willow Creek. Heavy rain flooded roads. Strong winds damaged buildings throughout town. Part of the resort suffered significant damage. Power outages affected hundreds of guests. Emergency crews worked around the clock. During the crisis, Mason transformed his garage into a community shelter. He cleared space inside. He provided generators. He helped stranded travelers. He repaired emergency vehicles for free. Arya organized blankets and food donations. For 3 days and 3 nights, father and daughter barely slept. News cameras eventually arrived. Their footage showed exhausted volunteers helping strangers. It showed Mason repairing vehicles under pouring rain. It showed Arya comforting frightened children. The images spread nationwide. Millions were moved. People saw genuine compassion. Not publicity. Not marketing. Real kindness. The story reached every major news network. Within days, donations poured in. Businesses offered support. Former customers sent letters from across the country. Mason accepted only what he truly needed. The rest he redirected toward rebuilding damaged homes in Willow Creek. That decision made people admire him even more. Success never changed him. Months later, Callan visited again. This time he brought a proposal. Instead of buying the garage, he wanted to partner with Mason. The resort planned to create a visitor center celebrating local businesses and community history. Callan wanted Mason's story to become the centerpiece. Mason hesitated. He never sought fame. But he understood the opportunity could help the town. So he agreed. The project launched the following summer. Guests learned about Willow Creek's history. They learned about resilience. They learned about ordinary people achieving extraordinary things. And at the heart of every tour stood the story of a single father who refused to quit. Years passed. The resort continued thriving. Yet one surprising fact never changed. The longest lines remained outside Mason's garage. Visitors came from different countries. Different cultures. Different backgrounds. Many had never repaired a vehicle in their lives. Still, they wanted to visit. Because they weren't really coming for the garage. They were coming for hope. They were coming to see proof that integrity still mattered. Proof that perseverance could triumph over impossible odds. Proof that kindness could attract more loyalty than wealth. Arya eventually graduated with honors. She studied engineering and business. Instead of leaving Willow Creek permanently, she returned. She helped modernize the garage while preserving its soul. Together, she and Mason expanded services, hired local workers, and created apprenticeship programs for struggling young adults. The business became more than a garage. It became a source of opportunity. A place where people were given chances they couldn't find elsewhere. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Mason stood outside the shop. The resort shimmered in the distance. Its lights reflected beautifully across the lake. Luxury guests walked along elegant pathways. Yet across the road, dozens of visitors still waited patiently outside his garage. Some carried cameras. Others carried souvenirs. Many simply wanted to say thank you. Mason thought back to the day the bulldozers arrived. The day he believed everything was ending. The day fear nearly convinced him to give up. He realized something profound. The resort had never been his enemy. The challenge had pushed him to reveal the very qualities that made him special. And those qualities were worth more than any building money could construct. Before we reach the ending, I have a special request. Please comment, kindness always wins, if you believe good hearts eventually find their reward. As years continued passing, visitors still shared stories about the humble mechanic beside the luxury resort. Parents brought children to teach them about perseverance. Business leaders visited to learn lessons about character. Travelers left inspired. And every person who met Mason carried home the same realization. True success is not measured by wealth. It is measured by the lives we touch. Near the end of this story, if Mason's journey touched your heart, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Your support helps these meaningful stories reach more people around the world. On the 20th anniversary of the garage, the town held a celebration. Residents gathered in the streets. Former apprentices returned. Families shared memories. Callan Voss attended quietly among the crowd. When the ceremony ended, a plaque was unveiled outside the garage. It contained a simple message. Built with hard work. Sustained by kindness. Remembered for hope. Mason stood beside Arya and looked at the words. For a moment, memories flooded back. The hardships. The loneliness. The sleepless nights. The fear. The sacrifices. Every struggle had led to this moment. Not because he became rich. Not because he became famous. But because he never stopped choosing kindness when life gave him reasons not to. And as the evening sunlight painted the sky gold, the father who once feared losing everything realized he had gained something far greater. Respect. Purpose. Community. And a legacy that would outlast every luxury resort, every trend, and every fortune. Because while people eventually forget buildings, they never forget the person who made them feel seen, valued, and loved. And that is why, long after the grand opening celebrations faded and the headlines disappeared, guests still lined up outside a small garage beside a $99 million resort. Not for what was inside the building, but for the remarkable heart of the man who stood inside it. The end.